discuss one very specific topic, and that is, how can we solve every problem in the world today? Most initiatives and interventions are designed to solve only one problem at a time. So to illustrate, I'll now present a series of sentences very rapidly on the screen. And if you like, you can choose to challenge yourself and read these sentences as many words as possible. And as you proceed, I'll clarify the purpose of this exercise. Specifically, when people deliberately choose to read very rapidly, they tend to feel more excited and enthusiastic. Their mood improves and symptoms of depression subside. But of course, this exercise does not motivate people to eat healthy food, or to exercise regularly, or to work harder, or to refrain from crime, and so forth. In contrast, we've discovered a mental state, or a brain state, that solves all of these problems and other problems simultaneously. And in particular, this mental state enhances well-being, improves productivity, fosters innovation, and diminishes the extent to which people are depressed, lazy, inefficient, scared, dishonest, unreliable, disloyal, rude, aggressive, intoxicated, unethical, and of course stoned. So what does this mental state entail? Well, to illustrate, let me recount a story about someone I know very well. Recently, this person could not decide which aspirations he'd like to achieve or which career pathways he'd like to pursue. And so his future seemed hazy and uncertain, rather than vivid and clear. And perhaps as a consequence, he experienced a range of problems. He lived a very unhealthy lifestyle, characterised by substance abuse. He was very susceptible to anxiety, depression, and even extreme shyness. He couldn't maintain eye contact and wore sunglasses to shield his eyes from other individuals. And thirdly, he tended to resist feedback, criticism, and advice, such as advice about his appearance. Whereas in contrast, if he could have imagined the future vividly, and if he was confident that he could achieve or cultivate this future, sometimes called future clarity, then all these problems would have dissipated. He would have lived a healthier lifestyle, his anxiety, depression, and shyness would have dissipated. Oh, that's better. And he would be much more open to feedback, advice, and criticism, such as about his appearance. Hopefully I'll get this off eventually, because it's a disgusting little big piece. So you might be sceptical that one mental state can solve all of these problems simultaneously. So to douse this scepticism, I'd like you to identify the most irritating, irresponsible, and irrational person you know, someone very annoying. And if you like, you can write down the name of this person, preferably not the person sitting next to you, because that could be awkward. Now, according to our research, this person can't imagine their future vividly. Or if they do imagine their future vividly, they feel on some level doubtful they can achieve this future. So consequently, the future seems hazy and uncertain and remote, and even unimportant and irrelevant. And because this future seems irrelevant, these individuals are not willing to sacrifice their pleasure now to enhance their future needs. So they'll tend to seek immediate pleasure rather than develop skills, knowledge, capabilities, and other resources that would benefit their future. So now I'd like you to imagine that person you identified as vividly as possible. And I will now read your minds and tell you about this person. So firstly, because this person prioritises their immediate pleasure over their future needs, they'll tend to gravitate to behaviours that promote enjoyment now but regret later, such as unhealthy eating, substance abuse, cigarette smoking, problem gambling, physical inactivity, or other impulsive behaviours. Or they'll tend to behave deceptively, selfishly, or even illegally, that is, behaviours that promote enjoyment now but regret later. Secondly, because they prioritise their immediate pleasure over the development of skills, knowledge, and expertise, they'll tend to reject information that diverges from their preconceptions and preferences. So they'll tend to dismiss criticism and seem defensive when challenged. Or they might derogate other perspectives or other communities, sometimes manifesting as sexism, racism, and prejudice. And third, because they prioritise their immediate pleasure over the development of skills, knowledge, and expertise, they'll tend to perceive difficulties and challenges and complications and setbacks in their life not as opportunities to grow and to learn, but as threats to their pursuit of pleasure. So therefore, their resistance or resilience will diminish, and they'll be more susceptible to anxiety, depression, psychosis, and a range of other mental health issues. So most of the problems in the person you identify can probably be ascribed to their hazy and uncertain future. And indeed, recent research vindicates this premise. We've collated over 500 studies that indicate that when people experience future clarity or similar states such as meaning in life or purpose in life, then many problems dissipate simultaneously. So our own research shows that future clarity prevents addictions, encourages people to live a healthy lifestyle, actually reduces the incidence of terrorism, and increases resilience in difficult and trying circumstances. So if one mental state, one brain state, can solve all of our problems, then life should be so easy. So why is life so hard? Why is mental illness, crime, and destructive behaviours so ubiquitous in modern society? Well, the answer is actually quite intriguing. The truth is that either Dr. Evil or Dr. Numbskull rules the world. So here are 3 pieces of evidence. So firstly, leaders tend to shift the strategies and values of the organisations, nations, and states they lead every couple of years. And so people cannot be sure which of their achievements will be cherished in the future. So they don't know which activities or endeavours they'll pursue in future decades. So they can't imagine their future vividly. The future seems hazy. So instead, to promote future clarity, the strategies and values of organisations, states and nations should be consistent, stable and enduring over time. Second, our lives seem more rushed and busy than ever. So most people don't feel they're granted the time or opportunities to develop the attributes and qualities they need to achieve their future aspirations. So they begin to doubt whether they'll ever accomplish their future goals. So again, their future seems hazy and uncertain, provoking a range of problems. So instead, to promote future clarity, people need to be given the time and opportunities to develop their fundamental attributes and qualities. And thirdly, most organisations, and particularly workplaces, seem more competitive than ever before. For example, salespeople will often need to outperform many of their peers every year or so just to maintain their job. And because organisations and workplaces seem so much more competitive than before, we often feel we might be undermined by other people. And so we're not as confident that we can accomplish our future goals. So again, the future seems hazy. And so instead, to promote future clarity, leaders need to cultivate an environment or a culture in which peers are altruistic, supportive and cooperative, rather than competitive. And so, to promote future clarity and solve many problems in the world, leaders need to cultivate 3 conditions. And I have to go through all these points again, just as a reminder. That wasn't intended, by the way. So the 3 conditions didn't come up, so I'll have to remember what they are. So in particular, leaders need to develop altruistic peers, opportunities to develop, and enduring strategies. But unfortunately, most of the initiatives and interventions that leaders introduce today actually contradict these 3 conditions. And so I can only conclude that leaders are either plainly evil or plainly incompetent. And And so my vision and hope for the future is that everyone who listens to this presentation will commit to 2 courses of action. First, I'd like you to uncover opportunities to utilise your position or in your roles to exploit your skills and strengths to foster these 3 conditions: altruistic peers, opportunities to develop, and enduring strategies. And second, I'd like you to uncover opportunities to encourage other organisations to prioritise these 3 conditions over all competing values and priorities. Now, you might feel that this mission is impossible, that such conditions are hard to cultivate, but actually, within the last 5 to 10 minutes, I cultivated all 3 of these conditions in this auditorium to some degree. So, for example, a few hours ago, I sprayed a citrus smell throughout the auditorium. Because when people are exposed to the faint smell of citrus, they tend to be more likely to trust each other and cooperate as a consequence. Possibly because they associate the citrus smell with a sense of safety and therefore hygiene, diminishing distrust. Secondly, at the beginning of this presentation, I presented a whole series of sentences very rapidly on the screen. And each of these sentences actually illustrate 6 of many other practices and principles that have been shown to inspire people to develop their skills, qualities, and attributes. And then finally, I presented to you a vision or hope of the future that most people and many organisations would prioritise 3 values: altruistic peers, opportunities to develop, and enduring strategies. Now, interestingly, this particular vision or hope tends to solve many problems simultaneously. It's aligned with the recent advances, in this case, many scientific discoveries, and it's also unique, diverging from the prevailing practices of most organisations. And what research shows is that any vision that entails these 3 characteristics tends to be perceived as more enduring and stable. So, in short, no longer do we need to solve all the problems of the world separately from one another. Instead, one set of interventions can evoke one mental or brain state, called future clarity, that can ameliorate and resolve all of these problems at the same time. So thank you for listening, and thank you for changing the world.